Now, for more on this, we are being joined by Scott Lucas from Birmingham. He is a professor of international politics at the Clinton Institute, University College Dublin. Mr. Lucas, thank you so much for joining us here on WION.
Thank you for having me here.
If you could quickly explain the consequence of funding being stopped on the ground in Gaza.
More than 85% of Gaza's population, in other words, more than 1.9 million people, have been displaced since October 7th amidst the Israeli response, the Israeli attacks after Hamas's mass killings inside Israel. A large percentage of those people are dependent upon UN aid just for basic survival. Many of them are in UN-run shelters. Those UN shelters, however, are not secure from Israeli attacks. Many of them have been struck during the conflict. 152 personnel of the UN Refugee Agency have been killed in that time. In other words, while this is a case that has to be investigated, Israel has submitted the names of 12 members of UNRWA, whom it says helped Hamas. 9 of them have been fired by the UN. 2 of them, identities are being clarified. 1 of them is dead. While these investigations are necessary, Israel is attempting to use this in 2 ways. First of all, it's trying to use it to divert attention from the International Court of Justice's ruling this week, which said that Israel must ensure that genocide does not occur in Gaza. And secondly, Israel's doing it to effectively paralyze the UN. It does not want the UN helping people in Gaza, and it doesn't want the UN in any way moving towards calls for a ceasefire.
Absolutely. And Mr. Lucas, we would like to tell our viewers some of the facts that you also have laid out. A little more, UNRWA is the primary and the largest humanitarian agency in Gaza. About 5.9 million Palestinians depend on this organization for education, healthcare, social services, and also you mentioned if you are specific to Gaza, that's about 2 million people. I want to ask you this, what is stopping United States, Australia, Italy, Canada, Finland, the Netherlands, Switzerland, Germany, and now the United Kingdom to at least wait till the investigations are over to actually suspend their fundings?
I'm afraid that the politics that we continue to see October the 7th is that the countries that you mentioned do not want to be put in the position of pressing Israel with an open call for ceasefire. They don't want to be put in the position of effectively telling the Israeli war cabinet, including Prime Minister Netanyahu, that's it. You have to stop or there will be serious consequences. So while this revelation about the UN employees is a face saver for Israel, so it can deflect attention, it's a face saver for these countries that rather than focus on what is still the key issue, which is the mass killings which are going on with more than 26,000 people dead in Gaza, the question of all these people, almost 2 million who've been displaced, they can say, oh, well, we've suspended aid to UNRWA, and therefore we've done our bit to try to respond to what is a diversionary, but what they'll call the primary issue of the moment.
Right. Mr. Lucas, I'm kind of out of time here, but quickly if I could ask you this, since you mentioned the ICJ ruling as well, you know, something that the experts have been saying after the ICJ ruling is that Israel had, even long before the verdict was out, the country had said that we are not going to go by the verdict. So the ICJ verdict was supposed to put pressure on its allies who are supporting Israel in this war. But right after that, we see a move like this. If a ruling like the ICJ, if the visuals coming out of Gaza, if what the UN chief has been going on and on about the humanitarian crisis that is playing out in Gaza is not stopping the allies of the Israel, what will, sir?
Well, I mean, the ICJ, unlike a criminal court, does not have enforcement power for its rulings, and that's the reality. So what you have to have is the international community agreeing to support the ICJ. Just as Russia, when the ICJ ruled against it in 2022, continued its attacks against Ukraine, Israel can continue its attacks against Gaza for as long as Prime Minister Netanyahu thinks that it is vital for his future. The leverage to stop Israel cannot come from the ICJ. It must come from a country like the U.S. to cut back military aid and to call for a ceasefire. If the U.S. doesn't take those steps, I think Israel still has a free hand to conduct an open-ended war.
All right, Mr. Lucas, thank you so much for joining us here on WION and getting us all those insights.
Thank you.